Some NFL teams are really boring to prepare for. Consider Kansas City and Baltimore. You have a great quarterback, solid coaching, and defense. Just pencil these teams in for 10 or more wins. But not other teams. I'm intrigued by these two NFL teams because of the potential variance in their outcomes. Let's take a look. In 2023, there were a lot of questions about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and a lot of them surrounded quarterback Baker Mayfield. He could not catch on as the permanent starter with either Carolina or the Los Angeles Rams the previous season, and he looked washed up. This was certainly reflected in my preseason metrics. One of the things I do at the Power Rank is I have a wisdom of crowds model. It may seem really stupid to aggregate the subjective opinions from power rankings across the internet. However, I've actually found that the predictions from this model are profitable against the closing spread the first 6 weeks of the season and also again in the playoffs. So when this model ranks Tampa Bay 28th in the NFL out of 32 teams, I take that seriously. However, Tampa Bay was able to buck those trends. They went 9-8 in the regular season to win the division. Then they caught a talented Philadelphia team in a good situation from them and won a playoff game. They lost their next playoff game at Detroit. Coming into last season in 2024, there were higher expectations for this team, but the preseason rank was still cautious about Tampa Bay. Offensive coordinator Dave Canales was gone, and you were looking at another season with Baker Mayfield. Tampa Bay started 2024 19th in my Wisdom of Crowds preseason NFL numbers. Tampa Bay did even better last year. They went 10-7, and then they lost a close playoff game to Washington and quarterback Jaden Daniels. Now it's 2025. What do we expect? It all comes down to Baker Mayfield. While the team's record has been excellent over the past 2 years, the underlying metrics suggested that something different happened. To do this, I'm going to look at yards per pass attempt. This is a metric that includes negative plays from sacks. And last year, Baker Mayfield was excellent. I will take his raw yards per pass attempt, and then I will adjust for the opposing defenses that he played. The results of this calculation are that Baker Mayfield is expected to throw for 6.91 yards per pass attempt against an average NFL defense. This is excellent compared to the average of 6.15 the past 3 seasons. This is even more remarkable given the circumstances for Baker last year. Wide receiver Chris Godwin was out most of the season. Wide receiver Mike Evans also missed a few games during the middle of the season. However, Baker's 2024 performance was significantly better than what he did the previous year. When I do the same calculation for 2023, Mayfield is now expected to throw for 5.93 yards per pass attempt against an average NFL defense. This is worse than the NFL average. And not surprisingly, his numbers were even worse in 2022 with Carolina and the Los Angeles Rams. Here's the take-home message about Baker Mayfield. Last year was an outlier. The only time that he could get close to that performance was 2020, and that was the last time with the Cleveland Browns that he had an above-average adjusted yards per pass attempt. I've also looked at other passing metrics that I trust, like passing success rate and PFF grades. You see the same trends over the last 6 seasons. I have my doubts whether Baker Mayfield could do it again. There's also other circumstances working against him and the Tampa Bay offense. Offensive tackle Kristen Wirfs has been a rock over the last couple of years. However, he is out with an injury until October. And Mike Evans is 32 years old, and Chris Godwin is 29 years old. There might be a drop-off for those two guys. Let's also look at Tampa Bay's defense. When I first started the power rank, I would analyze defenses based on how they did against opposing offenses. And when you look at my adjusted yards per pass attempt, Tampa Bay finished 13th in the NFL last year. Pretty close to NFL average. However, you really need to factor in that they played a lot of bad quarterbacks last year. They got Tommy DeVito with the Giants. They got half a game from Desmond Ridder with Las Vegas. And they played against Cooper Rush with Dallas. Now, at the power rank, I look at the specific quarterback instead of offense. And when I do the same calculations and I make adjustments for opponents, Tampa Bay's defense drops from 13th to 18th in my adjusted yards per pass attempt. You don't want to just look at the raw numbers. At the power rank, I have a way for adjusting for opposing quarterbacks. The defense has to improve to get to NFL average, and I just see this as a really high variance team. Baker may do it again, but you kind of have to bet against it. Jordan Love had a bad game to end last season. Green Bay overall had a pretty excellent season as they went 11-6 in an elite NFC North division that had Detroit and Minnesota. But then they got to the playoffs against Philadelphia. Jordan Love and the offense were able to move the ball. They actually had more total yards than Philadelphia in the game, but they just couldn't overcome 3 interceptions. It was a tough end to a season in which Love dealt with multiple injuries. But let's dig a little bit deeper into the passing metrics for Jordan Love, because I feel like this offense is going to be good. To evaluate Love, not only over last season, but the previous season, we're going to look at success rate. A success on a play for an offense is defined in terms of the fraction of yards they get towards the next first down. The offense, for a success, needs to get 50% of those necessary yards on first down, 70% of those necessary yards on second down, and obviously a play is only a success if you get all the yards on third and fourth down. We will look at passing success rate for Jordan Love, specifically as a quarterback, and then make adjustments for the defenses that he played. With Love last season, my metrics suggest that he should have a passing success rate of 45.8% against an average NFL defense. This is better than the NFL average of 43.3%. This is a solid result, but perhaps a little bit disappointing after what happened in 2023. That was Love's first year as a starter, and it was a struggle the first 10 weeks of the season. Green Bay had a 3-6 record, and Love was bottom 10 in the NFL in my adjusted passing success rate. However, from week 10 until the end of the regular season, my metrics expected Jordan Love to throw for 50.6% passing success rate against an average NFL defense. That would have been the best in the NFL. This Green Bay Packers offense with Jordan Love was elite for the second half of the 2023 season. When you look at the last year and a half, Love has been very good, and the Packers have a wealth of promising players at receiver as well. Wide receiver Jaden Reed gets a lot of criticism for the 10 drops that he had last season, but he did get 2.2 yards per route run, which is an excellent mark compared to the 1.5 NFL average for wide receivers. The Packers also made some upgrades in the draft. They drafted Matthew Golden at wide receiver in the first round, and they drafted Savion Williams in the third round. And then there's also other players like Romeo Doubs and tight end Tucker Kraft that have shown promise. Wide receiver, speedster Christian Watson is injured again. Shocker, I know, but maybe he shows up as well. The wide receiver room is so stacked that Bo Melton is now a cornerback on defense. You see these transitions from wide receiver to cornerback in college all the time, but he is trying to do it in the pros. Another thing to note about Jordan Love is interceptions. He had a 3.0 interception rate last season, and that's significantly worse than the NFL average of 2.2%. Luckily for the Packers, interception rate is not a good way of predicting the future. My research has shown that it's better to look not only at interceptions, but passes defended. These are plays in which the defense gets a hand on the ball, either a tip pass at the line of scrimmage or from a coverage player in the secondary. A pass defended is also marked when a defender jars the ball loose with a hit. Interceptions plus passes defended are something that I call bad balls, and these are the situations in which the quarterback throws the football into a dangerous situation. The more often you throw a football into a dangerous situation, the more likely you are to throw interceptions. Jordan Love is better than NFL average at throwing the football into dangerous situations. With my model, I expect him to have an interception rate of 2.1% in 2025. That is significantly better than what he did last year, 3%, and slightly better than the NFL average. What about Green Bay's defense? This is also a pretty interesting question as well. If you want to criticize Green Bay's defense, it's pretty easy. They forced 31 turnovers last year. That was fourth most in the NFL, and certainly not a number that you can sustain going into this season. In addition, they were 31st when I look at adjusted passing success rate. That's obviously bad as well. But this Packers defense was a lot stronger by other metrics. They were 14th when I looked at adjusted yards per pass attempt. That suggests a defense that is preventing big plays, but maybe can't stop you on a play-by-play basis. Also, this Green Bay defense was third in the NFL in PFF coverage grades. That is pretty good. And when you look at this Packers personnel, I think you can project it as an NFL average pass defense. They are particularly strong at safety with Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams. Matt LaFleur has only had one losing season as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, and he has won 10 or more games in 4 out of his 6 seasons. I think there's a high floor for this Green Bay Packers team, and if everything comes together for the offense, that's where you could see this Packers team really take off. Thank you for listening. My name is Ed Fang, your host for the Football Analytics Show. This episode is part of the 2025 Preview Series, a daily series of podcasts to get you ready for football season. This preview series is brought to you by the Power Ranks Sports Betting Newsletter. Looking for some action on any given weekend? This is the free service for you, as 5 Nugget Saturday is my curated list of tips and analytics. You will also get my NFL Wisdom of Crowds medal that I talked about in this episode a few days before the start of the NFL season. To sign up for free, go to thepowerrank.com. That is ThePowerRank. Members of the Power Rank get access to all my best predictions, analytics, and analysis. There are bets on football spreads, totals, and props every week of the season. To learn more about how to support my work, go to thepowerrank.net. That is a URL that will take you to a page where you can learn more about supporting my business.